Just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence. Because
So I'll just do a quick roundup of the story. For those of you that don't know, the claim goes that, in 2016, Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump to become U.S. president. The Russians feared that Hillary Clinton is really tough on Russia because, she stands up for U.S. democracy everywhere, while Trump is a authoritarian, whatever. And so Vladimir Putin directed the resources of the Russian government to try and get Trump elected. And so he did a bunch of things like hack the DNC and release their emails, did a bunch of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, propaganda and fake news to try and basically lie about Hillary Clinton's record and get Trump elected. That's kind of the sum of the claim that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. And to my understanding, I'm happy to be corrected on this, but I believe this whole Russia interference, disinformation claim basically spawned the fake news industry we have now. So now we have a lot of concern about, online speech and hate speech and disinformation and misinformation. So we even had in the UK, a few months ago, people getting arrested for retweeting and tweeting stuff. That all came from around this time. Around this time, Brexit also happened, but I'm not going to talk about Brexit. That's a separate thing. But essentially, the whole claim that, basically the online space and social media generally is so free that it's too free. And because of the freedom that it allows also for bad actors to influence basically the dumb masses. So the I guess the powers that be, the elites, for want of a better term, believe that basically people are too dumb, and because people are so dumb, the foreign countries that hate us, like of course the usual ones, Russia, China, Iran, insert country here, wherever we have a new baddie, I'm sure they will just insert those ones as well. Basically, those countries are responsible for spreading fake news or propaganda or disinformation or misinformation or malinformation, any of those terms. And so we have to protect our citizens from these lies. And so regarding the claims that Russia interfered in the elections, I boiled it down to two things. First of all, the claim that Russia hacked the DNC servers. Again, if you don't follow this, I'll just give a brief summary. In 2016, in the run-up to the elections, during the primary season, when Hillary Clinton was running against Bernie Sanders, a bunch of emails came out from the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, essentially alleged what everyone kind of knew at the time, which was like Hillary Clinton was cheating in the race to try and defeat Bernie Sanders. And that came out and it caused a lot of sensation. But immediately afterwards, Hillary Clinton came out and said Russia was responsible for hacking the DNC and releasing the emails because they wanted to help Donald Trump. So that quickly shifted focus from what the content of the emails were, which is that they showed very brazenly the fact that Hillary Clinton is corrupt and a liar and was trying to cheat her way to the victory. And they kind of focused on the fact that another foreign country is trying to interfere in our elections. Now, a lot of you have probably heard that story, but what you don't know is that it's actually not true. Two reasons why it's not true. First, one of the top NSA code breakers, these are the people that are involved with actually hacking and intercepting, electronic messages and devices. His name was William Binney. He's testified that he's very, very sure that it wasn't a hack, but it was actually someone downloaded the emails and the content through a flash drive. So Russia couldn't have hacked it because there was no evidence of a hack. Also, the people that certified that Russia hacked the DNC were a company called CrowdStrike. So it wasn't actually any law or legal authorities. And when the FBI was investigating this claim, they asked the DNC to basically provide their servers to be investigated and to be, kind of forensically analyzed. And the DNC refused. So no government agency has actually formally said, oh, Russia hacked the DNC. Hillary Clinton just came up with that as an excuse to try and dovetail into why she thinks, Russia is trying to interfere with, the election. A lot of you are probably thinking, but why Russia? Why not China or Iran? Well, good question. I'm glad you asked. Now, people don't know this. Many people don't know this. But Hillary Clinton's campaign did internal polls, in the run-up to the election. And they found out that people perceived her to be very corrupt because of one particular deal she did when she was Secretary of State. Essentially, a Russian company bought another company that had rights to about 20% to mine 20% of the uranium in America. And that company gave millions of dollars to her foundation, the Clinton Foundation, and people basically saw the Clinton Foundation as a means of a way for her to basically launder money. So she would go and do a speaking tour or something. She would get international governments would donate to the foundation, and then she would just do favors for them in her capacity as Secretary of State. Again, of course, she denies this, but that was the story. And so the polls showed that people perceived her to be corrupt because of that deal, which had to do with Russia. And so what you do in politics is that if you're weak on a particular issue, you try to flip it around on your opponent. So you try to start to say, if I'm weak on Russia, I'm going to start making stuff up about my opponent's connections to Russia. So people start to focus on that and take the spotlight off me. Again, because Hillary Clinton is obviously a woman that is very powerful in the American political space, she controls a lot of the media in terms of, not directly, but a lot of her minions work in various high positions in the media, and a lot of them are affiliated with the Democratic Party. It was easier for her to basically start to push these claims, and so everything that happened, like the DNC leak or any other thing, she easily just said, "Oh, Russia did it." Now she's trying to make the narrative that Russia's funding Trump, Trump and Russia are colluding, and that gets us to the other part of the story, the Steele dossier. So again, in 2016, in the run-up to the election, there was a British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele, and there was a intelligence report. I put intelligence in quotes because there was nothing intelligent about it, but they essentially published a report that said Trump may be vulnerable to Russia because they have some stuff on him. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was stuff about some P tapes and sexual blackmail and all sorts of sensational claims like that was published in BuzzFeed. And essentially, the whole point of releasing this was that Hillary Clinton wanted the FBI to start an investigation into Trump as to whether or not he was colluding with Russia to steal the election, and so she could then use that as a campaign issue to say, "Oh, um, Trump is colluding with Russia. We can't elect someone that's compromised." And that was a serious thing that people and a lot of journalists were looking into and investigating at the time, whether or not this was actually true and Trump was actually an agent of the Russians. Again, we now know, we didn't even now know, we always knew the story was very far-fetched and stupid, but this was all part of Hillary Clinton's campaign to try and flip the narrative on Russia and make it seem like Trump was the one that was weak and susceptible to Russia when the polls showed that people perceived her to be. And so the link to the current disinformation, really free speech war we have right now, the attack on free speech, is that when Hillary Clinton eventually lost the election in 2016, the excuse was already there that Russia was trying to help Trump. And so even the claims about Russia, you know, doing a lot of online, interference and manipulation, a lot of the people that bought ads, they were nothing to do with the Russian government. They were just, internet companies that were just trying to essentially look for engagement and, stuff like that. And a lot of those happened after the election. And it was like very, very small amount of money. So the claim was never true. It fell apart in court, even when they tried to charge some of the Russians with interference. It had nothing to do with the election. It was just a manufactured claim to try and say, okay, now that we have all these concerns about other people telling our our citizens stuff that we don't want them to know, we have to do something about this. And that's really what they're trying to do. When you hear a politician say something like, oh, we have to be concerned about the way speech can be weaponized and the proliferation of, false information or disinformation, they don't mean like, oh, we don't want disinformation. They just mean we want us to be able to spread disinformation to you, and you can't do it back to us. So we want to be able to tell our citizens what we want them to know, and we can't have anyone else trying to give them a different perspective. So, for example, we have the war in Ukraine, for example. A lot of people that if you watch the BBC, you wouldn't know that the US did a coup in Ukraine in 2014. You wouldn't know that they tried to kill the president. They overthrew their government and they installed literal Nazis. These people were recognized Nazis by the US, and in fact, the US blocked funding to these groups. Even after the coup, but they only eventually decided to resume funding to them when the war began. If you said that now, they would say that's Russian propaganda. Not because the Russians are lying about this, but because they don't want to tell you that. They want to tell you that Ukraine is fighting a glorious war to save democracy from, the dastardly Russian hordes, and that's why we have to support them in the effort to fight back. Again, I've talked about it before on Israel. The government wants you to be able to tell you that Israel is doing what it can to limit, humanitarian casualties, but they have to do more. So the framing is that Israel is not trying to intentionally kill civilians, but they're just not being careful enough in carrying out, their war and fight against Hamas. But anyone that goes on social media for half an hour sees the videos. We know what's really going on. That's the disinformation they want to protect you from, not any actual lies. They don't want you to find out the truth about what they're doing. And again, it's very important to link. This is basically where this whole began. The 2016 election campaign where Hillary Clinton lost and she blamed Russia for all the evil, all the ills and all the things that was wrong with her campaign. This is where the war on disinformation started. This is when media companies decided to decide that even when they received information that was true, but they were unsure about the source, they wouldn't publish it, which is something they've never ever done before. So they're trying to actively limit the flow of information because they're concerned about the fact that it may or may not be untrue, instead of letting the people that are going to consume that information decide on the veracity of it. And so, of course, a natural culmination, and my theory is basically she still hasn't got over that loss in 2016 because that was her only chance. And now she can never ever run again. And if you think about someone like Hillary Clinton, who has been in politics for as long as she has been senator, secretary of state, has been working her way up, you have to imagine that for a long time, probably since her husband was president in 1992, she'd wanted to be president too. And that's why she stayed with him through cheating scandals and all that kind of stuff, because she knew this is all part of her career. And to have that taken away from you through your own actions, basically because you're so unlikable, it does something very damaging to your mind. And what it does is basically the kind of derangement you're seeing now, which is that you're now calling for your citizens to be prosecuted and arrested for telling lies, when a lot of the time those lies are actually true, and no one has told more lies than you have. The fact that Hillary Clinton funded the Steele dossier that was then used to start an investigation into Trump Crossfire Hurricane, that was something that was hidden from the public for many years until a few years ago when it was revealed in court. Hillary Clinton lied about that. She said she didn't know anything about that. She was the one that promulgated all the lies that were involved in there because she funded it to then start that investigation. Again, no one lies more than these people. Weapons of mass destruction. There's too many lies to count. Every time a politician opens their mouth, we all know you can hear probably 5, 10 lies. If they're not lies, they're misdirections. They lie in many subtle ways. So for these kind of same people to be talking about how they want to protect us from the proliferation of fake news or disinformation, or they want to prosecute us, if they actually make a law to say we're going to prosecute people spreading propaganda, come on. But you have to remember, propaganda is a weaponized term. American propaganda, British propaganda, that's good. Russian propaganda, that's bad. And lastly, I'll say, needless to say, a lot of the things that's considered propaganda now, in 20, 30 years, they'll be incontrovertible. The fact that we are actively funding and arming a genocide, I'm sure the Israelis believe that's Hamas propaganda. We all know it's true. And if our governments had their way, they probably wouldn't want to say that. But in about 50, 60 years, I'm sure you're going to hear stuff like, we could have done more. We should have known. Same kind of things they were saying when the Rwanda genocide happened. Obviously, different circumstances, but the point still stands that just because the government doesn't like it, and even if it's false, it doesn't matter. Like, people should be allowed to say that, because free speech involves people saying things that you don't like or are lies or you don't agree with. That's how it goes. But they don't even want you to be able to say that, and the main reason is because they're seeing that people are starting to be able to find out the truth without going to BBC or CNN or all these places. Everyone recognizes those things for what they are, and their viewership is, it's in the toilet. No one wants to listen to them anymore. That's why I'm doing stuff like this. You're seeing other people doing different types of independent media stuff, because there's so much that people should know, and I think it's very interesting to actually try and know that you just won't hear on the media, because they're involved in pushing government propaganda. They're the ones that are the biggest proliferators in terms of when you think about lying. They lie to us all the time, and what they're trying to defend, as you see in that video from Hillary Clinton, is their right to continue to lie to us. That's why she can go on there and pretend as though she had nothing to do with the Steele dossier and all those kind of things. And the Rachel Maddow, the presenter, could have asked her so many questions that, hold on a minute, you've lied about so many things in your career. Are you going to be prosecuted under this law? That's a very common question that I would ask someone if they're coming to me talking about, we need to start prosecuting people for lying or for doing X, Y, and Z. Have you never done that before? Is that what you're trying to say? That's a very basic question. But again, she can go on these media platforms and basically say what she wants, because these people, they're not really journalists, they're stenographers. They're just gonna say whatever she thinks. They're in her pocket. And so this is why I keep talking a lot about free speech, and I think it's a very important thing because this is where they're going with it. And I think a lot of people that don't really think about that right now, you'll be very surprised one day when you actually just tweet something very innocuous, and your tweet was taken down, or the police come to your door. You'll be like, wait, what? I didn't realize things have gotten this bad, but like they're on their way. I think that's why we all need to call to arms, if you will, kind of just be more conscious about it, because it's quite scary what's going on right now. So on that note, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. I try to keep this one as short as possible, but Hillary Clinton, when she says something, it's too good to miss. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you found that informative, and you can share that with your friends and tell them, next time they talk about Russia hacked the 2016 election, you can tell them actually that didn't really happen. It's a lie. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll speak to you guys in the next episode.